When everyday shopping gets disrupted, the people who stay calm usually aren't the ones with the fanciest gear. They're the ones with a pantry that's already set up. In this video, we're going through 30 of the best canned foods to stockpile, especially if you're a beginner and you want a simple, realistic plan. The focus is on three things: long shelf life, solid nutrition, and foods you can actually turn into meals without a lot of cooking or extra ingredients. Each item on the list has a clear purpose, so you're not just buying cans. You're building a pantry that works. Number 1. Canned sardines. Sardines are one of the highest nutrition per inch of shelf space foods you can buy. You're getting solid protein, healthy fats, and a long list of micronutrients that are hard to replace when your menu gets repetitive. The big perk is the bones. In sardines, the bones are soft and edible, which means you're also getting a real calcium boost without needing fresh dairy. For buying, don't overthink brands at first. Grab a mix, some packed in water for lighter meals, and some packed in olive oil for extra calories. Oil-packed tins also give you something to cook with in a pinch. To use them without getting bored, think of sardines as a seasoning protein. Mash into rice with a little lemon juice packet or vinegar. Mix into pasta, add to crackers, or stir into canned tomatoes for a fast, salty, filling bowl. For stockpiling, aim for a steady rotation, not a museum. A practical target is enough tins for 1 to 2 meals per week per person, then scale up if you actually like them. Store them cool, dry, and don't keep dented or swollen cans. Number 2. Canned salmon. Canned salmon is a step up when you want a cleaner tasting fish and a more meal-like feel. It's still shelf-stable, still high protein, and you can usually find versions with edible bones for extra calcium. If you're new to it, start with pink salmon to keep costs down. Save fancy varieties for later. The easiest way to make salmon feel like real food is to turn it into patties. Salmon plus crushed crackers or breadcrumbs. A little canned egg substitute if you have it, or just mash and pan fry if you've got oil. You can also mix it into instant rice, canned peas or carrots, and a little mustard for a simple bowl that doesn't feel like emergency eating. Watch the sodium on some brands, and remember that low sodium is nice, but not required for a beginner stockpile. A useful baseline is about a dozen cans per person, then adjust based on budget and how often you use it. Like all canned proteins, keep it out of humid storage, rotate older cans forward, and check for rust or bulging before you open anything. Number 3. Canned mackerel. Mackerel doesn't get the spotlight, but it deserves a spot in a serious pantry. It's usually cheaper than salmon, often richer than tuna, and it brings a strong flavor that can wake up bland staples. That flavor is actually a prepper advantage, because it turns rice, beans, and plain pasta into something you'll want to eat. Look for fillets packed in oil, tomato sauce, or brine. Tomato sauce versions are especially handy because the can already includes a built-in sauce you can stretch with more tomatoes, broth, or water. The simplest meal is mackerel over rice with a little black pepper, or mixed into canned beans for a high-protein bowl. If you're planning for longer disruptions, having a few strong-tasting items helps prevent appetite fatigue, which is a real problem when you're stressed and eating the same stuff over and over. Stockpiling goal: enough for occasional variety, like 6 to 12 cans per person to start. Then rotate based on what you actually eat. Same rules apply: cool, dry storage, avoid damaged cans, and don't count on any food if the seal looks compromised. Number 4. Canned tuna. Tuna is the classic shelf-stable protein because it's easy, familiar, and it fits into almost anything. For stockpiling, Chunk Light is usually the best all-around choice. It tends to be cheaper, and many people find it easier to eat regularly. Get a mix of water-packed and oil-packed. Water-packed is lighter for salads and wraps. Oil-packed is better when you need more calories and you want the tuna to feel less dry. Tuna works because it doesn't demand extra ingredients. You can mix it with canned beans for a quick protein bump, stir it into pasta with canned tomatoes, or eat it with crackers and hot sauce. For beginners, the real strategy is variety and rotation. Tuna is great, but you don't want it to be your only fish. Alternate it with sardines, salmon, or mackerel so your diet doesn't get stuck. A solid starting number is around 12-24 cans per person, depending on how often you plan to use it. Keep it stored away from temperature swings. And if you're building a family stockpile, choose easy open cans so you're not depending on one tool. Number 5. Canned chicken. Canned chicken is one of the most beginner-friendly preps because it's already cooked, mild, and flexible. That matters when you're low on time, low on fuel, or just mentally worn out. It can turn a basic carb into a meal fast. Chicken plus rice, chicken plus pasta, chicken plus canned vegetables, or chicken stirred into broth for a quick soup. It also plays well with almost any seasoning profile, so you can push it toward taco flavors, curry flavors, or simple salt and pepper comfort food. When you buy it, check the label for protein per serving and sodium. You don't need perfect, just be aware that some brands are very salty. If you can, grab a mix of white meat and dark meat for texture variety. For stocking amounts, a reasonable beginner target is enough for a couple of meals per week per person. Then build from there. If your budget is tight, treat canned chicken as your no-cooking emergency option, and use cheaper proteins the rest of the time. Store it like other cans, dry shelves, no direct heat, and rotate by date so you're always eating the oldest first. Number 6. Canned turkey. Canned turkey doesn't get talked about much, but it's a smart way to add protein variety without changing your whole plan. Variety is more than taste. It helps you stick to your stockpile in real life, which keeps everything rotated and fresh. Turkey is usually lean, so it pairs well with higher calorie foods like rice, pasta, or coconut milk-based sauces. It also fits into comfort meals that people actually want to eat. Turkey and gravy over canned potatoes, turkey mixed into soup, or turkey added to boxed stuffing if that's part of your pantry. For buying, look for simple ingredient lists and cans that feel solid. No dents, no rust around seams. Canned turkey is sometimes seasonal, so if you see a decent deal, that's the time to grab a few. For beginners, 6 to 12 cans per person is a practical start, especially if you already have chicken. It's not about replacing chicken, it's about not relying on one single protein. Keep it stored in a stable, cool area, and once you open it, treat it like fresh cooked meat. Use it right away, unless you have reliable refrigeration. Number 7. Luncheon meat. Luncheon meat, including Spam-style products, is a long-term pantry workhorse because it's calorie-dense and doesn't require any prep. In normal life, people complain it's salty and processed, and that's fair. In a disruption, the conversation changes. Salt can be useful when you're sweating, working, and eating mostly bland staples. The fat content is also a big deal because fat carries a lot of calories in a small space, and it helps you feel full. The best way to use luncheon meat is as an ingredient, not just slices. Dice it into rice, add it to canned beans, crisp it in a pan, and toss it into canned vegetables, or use it to add meat flavor to soups and stews. For stockpiling, you don't need a mountain. Start with 6 to 12 cans per person, then adjust based on taste and budget. If you're watching sodium for health reasons, treat it as an occasional option and balance it with lower sodium foods. Store it dry. Keep it off concrete floors if your storage area gets damp, and don't trust any can that looks swollen or leaking. Number 8. Corned beef hash. Corned beef hash is a one-can meal that earns its spot because it delivers calories, protein, and comfort in a format that feels familiar. It's basically meat and potatoes already combined, which means it pairs perfectly with pantry basics without needing a recipe. If you can heat it, it becomes much more satisfying, but it can still work cold if you had to. The easiest way to stretch it is to mix it with canned vegetables, or serve it over rice. If you have eggs in your normal rotation, it also blends well with scrambled eggs, but don't build your plan around perishable add-ons. For buying, check the can size and calories. Some are small, some are heavy. For stockpiling, a reasonable beginner number is 6 to 10 cans per person, because it's not something most people want daily, but it's very useful when you need a quick, filling meal. Keep in mind, it's usually high sodium, so it's best as a tool in your stockpile, not the foundation of it. Store it like everything else, cool, dry, stable temperatures, and rotate so you're eating the oldest first. Number 9. Canned ham. Canned ham is underrated because people forget it exists until they see it at the store. It's a solid middle ground between plain canned chicken and salty luncheon meat. You get real meat texture, good protein, and a flavor that works for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Ham is a great way to make cheap staples feel more complete. Ham and beans, ham and split pea soup, ham mixed into canned potatoes, or ham diced into rice. If you can store a few cans, it gives you flexibility for different meal styles. When buying, watch serving size and sodium. Some canned hams are very salty, which might be fine occasionally, but you want balance. For beginners, 4-8 cans per person is a reasonable start, especially if you already have other proteins. It's more about having options than having one perfect meat. Keep it stored carefully, because larger cans can be heavy and more likely to get banged up. If a big can gets dented on a seam, don't gamble with it. In a long-term pantry, food safety is part of preparedness. Number 10. Canned roast beef. Canned roast beef or canned beef chunks are one of the best serious meal upgrades you can add to a stockpile. They're usually pricier, so you don't need a ton, but they deliver something important: beef flavor and higher iron content compared to many other canned proteins. That matters when your diet gets repetitive. Beef also pairs well with pantry staples like canned potatoes, carrots, and broth. You can turn it into a quick stew by combining beef, broth, canned vegetables, and a spoon of tomato paste. It's also great over rice, especially if you add black pepper, garlic powder, or whatever seasonings you keep. For buying, look for cans with simple labels and avoid anything that sounds like mostly gravy with little meat. For stockpiling, think of it as a hard day option. The kind of food you break out when you need something filling and satisfying. A beginner target might be 4 to 8 cans per person, depending on budget. Store it carefully, rotate it, and remember that canned beef is most valuable when you use it to stretch cheaper foods, not when you treat it like a luxury item. Number 11. Vienna sausages. Vienna sausages are not gourmet food, but they're popular in emergency kits for a reason. They're compact, ready to eat, and easy for almost anyone to handle. For some people, they're also easier to chew and swallow than drier canned meats, which matters if someone isn't feeling well. Nutritionally, they're not the cleanest option, and they can be salty, but they provide quick calories and protein with zero prep. The smart way to use them is as a backup, not a main protein. Toss them into canned soup, slice them into ramen if that's in your pantry, or eat them with crackers as a fast snack-style meal. If you're building a beginner stockpile, a small layer of grab-and-go foods is useful for days when you can't cook, don't want to cook, or you need to conserve fuel. A realistic number is a few cans per person, like 4 to 6, and then adjust based on taste. Check cans for dents, because these are smaller and sometimes get handled roughly in stores. Keep them in the same cool, dry conditions as the rest of your pantry. Number 12. Canned chili. Canned chili is one of the best shelf-stable foods for beginners because it's basically a full meal in one container. It usually combines meat, beans, tomatoes, and spices, which means you're not starting from scratch. It's also calorie-dense compared to plain canned vegetables, so it helps when you need energy. Chili is easy to stretch. Pour it over rice, mix it with pasta, spoon it onto canned potatoes, or dilute it with broth to make it go further. The flavor is strong enough to make basic pantry carbs feel less bland, and that's a real advantage in longer disruptions. When buying, get a mix of regular and with beans versions. Beans stretch meals and add fiber, which helps keep your digestion steady when your diet changes. Watch sodium levels, especially if someone in your household has blood pressure concerns, but don't let perfection slow you down. A good beginner target is 6 to 12 cans per person. Store it with your other canned meals and rotate it regularly, because chili is one of those foods you can actually eat in normal life without feeling like you're eating the emergency stash. Number 13. Hearty stew. Canned stew, especially beef stew, is another one-can meal that gives you a good mix of protein, carbs, and vegetables without requiring planning. It's not the cheapest option, but it fills a role that matters. When you're tired, stressed, or short on cooking fuel, you still need food that feels like food. Stew also brings moisture, which can help when dry staples like rice and pasta start to wear you down. The best way to use canned stew is to treat it as a base. Add extra canned vegetables, stir in a spoon of tomato paste, or pour it over rice to stretch it into 2 servings. If you have bread or crackers, stew turns into a complete, satisfying meal fast. For buying, check meat content. Some brands are heavier on potatoes and gravy. That's not automatically bad, just know what you're paying for. For stockpiling, 6 to 10 cans per person is a practical range. Keep it in a stable temperature area because repeated heat swings can shorten quality over time. Rotate it like any other canned meal, and don't rely on it if a can looks damaged. Number 14. Ready-to-eat soup. Ready-to-eat soups are one of the most useful items in a pantry stockpile because they combine convenience with hydration. In a disruption, people often end up under-drinking without realizing it, especially if routines are off. Soup helps because it's food and fluids together. The other benefit is that soup can be gentle. If someone's not feeling well or has low appetite, soup is easier than dry foods. For buying, don't just pick one type. Build a mix: chicken noodle, vegetable, minestrone, tomato, and hearty soups with beans or meat. Variety matters, and it also helps you cover more nutrients. Some soups are basically salty water. Others have real calories. Read labels and aim for a mix of light and hearty. For stockpiling, 10 to 20 cans per person is a reasonable beginner goal, depending on how much storage space you have. Ready-to-eat versions also reduce your dependence on extra water. Store them where cans won't rust, and keep a manual can opener as backup even if you buy pull tabs, because you don't want your whole plan to fail over one small tool. Number 15. Canned broth. Canned broth and stock don't always feel exciting, but they're a quiet powerhouse for meal making. Broth turns plain rice into something closer to a real dish. It upgrades canned beans, helps you stretch stews, and makes it easier to use pantry ingredients when you don't have fresh aromatics like onions and garlic. In a beginner prepper pantry, broth also supports no recipe cooking, where you just combine what you have and still get decent results. For buying, consider low sodium broth if you can, because it gives you more control. You can always add salt, but you can't remove it. Broth is also great for making quick soups. Broth plus canned vegetables plus canned chicken is an easy, reliable meal. For stockpiling amounts, think in terms of cooking frequency. If you cook rice, beans, or soups often, broth will get used. A good start is 6 to 12 cans or cartons per person, then adjust. Store it carefully and check packaging. If you use cartons, protect them from crushing. If you use cans, watch for rust. Broth isn't glamorous, but it makes everything else easier to eat. Number 16. Mixed canned beans. If you're prepping on a budget, canned beans are one of the best deals in the entire store. They give you protein, complex carbs, and fiber, and they're already cooked, which saves fuel. The best move is to buy variety, not just one kind. Black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, white beans, and navy beans all behave a little differently in recipes. That variety helps you avoid getting sick of one taste and texture. Beans are also building block food. You can eat them straight, mash them, mix them into rice, add them to soup, or turn them into chili with canned tomatoes and spices. For buying, pay attention to sodium and also to no salt added options if your household needs it. Rinsing beans can reduce salt and improve taste if you have enough water, but don't assume you'll always want to spend water on rinsing. For stockpiling, a beginner target is 20 to 40 cans per person, especially if beans are a major part of your plan. Store them dry, rotate them, and avoid stacking so high that you crush labels or dent cans. Number 17. Canned lentils. Lentils are one of the easiest legumes to eat regularly, and canned lentils make it even simpler because they're ready to go. Lentils have a softer texture than many beans, and they work well in soups, stews, and bowl meals over rice. They also take seasoning well, which is useful when you're relying on pantry spices to keep meals interesting. A simple meal is lentils plus canned tomatoes plus broth heated together into a thick soup. You can also mix lentils into chili to stretch it, or combine them with canned carrots and a little curry powder for a basic but filling dish. Canned lentils are sometimes harder to find than dried, but when you see them, they're worth grabbing because they reduce cooking time and fuel use to basically zero. For stockpiling, you don't need huge numbers if you already have other beans. Start with 6 to 12 cans per person as a variety option. If you end up liking them, scale up. Keep storage conditions consistent and rotate like anything else. The goal is food you'll actually eat, not food you'll only tolerate. Number 18. Canned chickpeas. Chickpeas are a stockpile favorite because they do a lot of jobs. They're filling, they hold their shape, and they can go in soups, salads, rice bowls, and quick spreads. If you have a little oil and seasonings, chickpeas can even become a simple, no-cook protein meal. Mash chickpeas with salt, pepper, and a little vinegar for a basic spread, or toss them into canned vegetable soup to make it heartier. They also work well with tomato-based meals, and they're a great match for coconut milk if you keep curry-style spices. For buying, look for cans with chickpeas as the first ingredient, and avoid ones that seem mostly liquid. If you have enough water, rinsing can improve taste, but it's optional. For stockpiling, 8 to 16 cans per person is a good beginner range, because chickpeas add variety without being too niche. Store them with other beans, keep them dry, and rotate them. Chickpeas are one of those foods that help you build meals that feel normal, even when you're relying heavily on shelf-stable ingredients. Number 19. Refried beans. Refried beans are a convenience upgrade that's easy to overlook. They're already cooked and mashed, which means they can turn into a filling meal fast with almost no effort. They also work as a binder and glue food, helping you combine pantry items into something cohesive. Spread refried beans on tortillas if you have them, use them as a base under canned meat, or stir them into rice to create a thick, filling bowl. They also blend well into chili, and they can be used to thicken soups without needing flour or other baking supplies. When buying, watch for fat content and sodium. Some are simple beans, some include lard, and some are heavily salted. None of that automatically disqualifies them, it just affects how you use them. For stockpiling, 6 to 12 cans per person is a solid start, especially if your pantry leans toward Mexican-style meals. Refried beans are also useful for feeding kids or picky eaters because the texture is consistent and easy. Store them carefully and rotate them. Once opened, use them quickly. Number 20. Canned pasta meals. Canned pasta meals like ravioli, spaghetti, or pasta with meat sauce aren't health foods, but they're useful stockpile tools for a beginner. They're complete meals that require almost nothing. Open, heat if you can, eat. In a real disruption, decision fatigue is a thing. Having a few no-thinking meals helps keep you consistent. These meals also tend to be familiar, which can matter for family preparedness. If you're trying to feed people who don't want survival food, a can of pasta and sauce feels normal. For buying, check calories per can and serving sizes. Some cans look big but don't provide much. Also pay attention to pull tab lids if you're planning for power outages or situations where tools might go missing. For stockpiling, think of these as a comfort and convenience layer. 6 to 10 cans per person is a reasonable start. Then rotate them into normal life. Keep a few in the back of the pantry and replace as you use them. They're not the foundation of preparedness, but they make the whole plan more realistic and easier to maintain. Number 21. Evaporated milk. Evaporated milk is one of the most practical, hidden stockpile foods because it adds nutrition and flexibility in a way most people don't expect. It's shelf-stable dairy, which helps fill gaps when fresh milk isn't an option. It can be diluted with water to behave like regular milk for cereal, baking, or drinking, and it can also be used straight for richer sauces and soups. It's especially useful for creamy meals made from canned foods. Think tomato soup with evaporated milk, or chicken and vegetable soup turned creamy without needing fresh cream. For buying, stick with plain evaporated milk first. Sweetened condensed milk is a different product with a different job. For stockpiling amounts, 6 to 12 cans per person is a good beginner range. More if your household uses milk often, or you plan to store a lot of dry cereal and oats. Evaporated milk is also helpful for kids' meals, and for keeping calories up when food choices are limited. Store it cool and dry, and rotate it like everything else. If a can is bulging, leaking, or badly rusted, don't use it. Number 22. Coconut milk. Coconut milk is an easy way to add fats and calories to meals that would otherwise feel thin. It's also a flavor changer, which matters when your pantry staples start tasting the same. Coconut milk pairs well with canned chicken or canned chickpeas, and it can turn a basic pot of rice into a richer, more filling meal. If you keep curry powder, chili flakes, or even just garlic powder, coconut milk helps you build a simple, curry-style bowl without needing fresh ingredients. It also works in some baked goods, and it can be used to make quick, creamy soups with canned vegetables. For buying, check the label. Coconut milk is thicker and higher in fat than coconut drink. For stockpiling, 4 to 8 cans per person is a good start. It's not an everyday item for everyone, but it adds a lot of value when you want calorie density and variety. Store cans dry and watch for dents, especially around seams. Coconut milk often separates in the can. That's normal. Shake before opening or stir after. Number 23. Tomato products. Tomato products are the backbone of making canned foods taste like real meals. Diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, tomato sauce, and tomato paste each do something different, and stocking a mix is smarter than buying only one. Tomatoes bring acidity and depth, which helps beans, rice, canned meats, and vegetables taste less flat. Tomato paste is especially valuable because it's concentrated flavor and thickening in a small can. A spoon of paste can turn broth into a sauce, and it can make canned stew taste more homemade. Diced tomatoes are great for chili and soups. Crushed tomatoes are better for sauces. Tomato sauce is the fast, no-fuss option. For buying, look for no salt added versions if you want flexibility, but don't skip tomatoes just because the sodium isn't perfect. For stockpiling, tomatoes are one of the few items where bigger numbers make sense because they combine with everything. A beginner target could be 20-40 cans per person across different types, depending on how much you cook. Store them carefully, rotate them, and avoid badly dented cans because acidic foods can be less forgiving with damaged packaging. Number 24. Canned pumpkin. Plain canned pumpkin is one of the most versatile cans you can store, and most people only think of it as a holiday thing. Nutritionally, it brings fiber and useful vitamins, and practically, it helps with texture. Pumpkin thickens soups, stretches oatmeal, and makes rice bowls feel less dry. It also works in baking if you have the supplies, but you don't need to rely on that. A simple approach is pumpkin plus broth plus seasonings, or pumpkin stirred into beans and tomatoes to make a thicker, more filling chili-like meal. When buying, make sure it's 100% pumpkin and not pumpkin pie filling, unless you specifically want the sweet version. The plain can is more flexible because you can always sweeten it later, but you can't easily unsweeten a pie-filling can. For stockpiling, 6 to 12 cans per person is a good start, especially because pumpkin adds variety and helps prevent your pantry from being all salty, savory foods. Store it cool and dry, rotate it, and open it carefully. Like any canned food, you want clean rims and intact seals. Number 25. Canned potatoes. Canned potatoes are one of the best ready carb options for emergencies because they don't require boiling from scratch. That saves time and fuel, and it gives you a reliable side dish that pairs with almost any canned protein. They also work as a base for simple meals: canned beef and gravy over potatoes, canned turkey with soup-style sauce, or potatoes stirred into broth with vegetables for a quick soup. They're not glamorous, but they're useful. When buying, choose whole or sliced depending on how you plan to use them. Whole potatoes are better for roasting-style meals if you can cook. Sliced potatoes are easier for soups. Check sodium levels, because some brands pack potatoes in salty liquid. For stockpiling, 6 to 12 cans per person is a solid beginner amount, more if you rely heavily on potatoes as a comfort food. Store them dry and rotate them. Canned potatoes can be a morale item too, because they make meals feel familiar and substantial, which matters when everything else feels improvised. Number 26. Sweet potatoes. Canned sweet potatoes or yams bring a different kind of value. They're carbs, but they also add natural sweetness and a softer texture that breaks up the monotony of salty foods. They can be eaten as is, mashed, or mixed into other dishes. Sweet potatoes work surprisingly well with canned meats like ham or turkey, and they also pair with spices like cinnamon if you store it. From a stockpile perspective, they're useful because they can act as both a side dish and a quick calorie source. When buying, check whether they're packed in heavy syrup or lighter liquid. For most people, lighter is better because it gives you more flexibility, and you can always add sugar later if you want. For stockpiling, 4 to 10 cans per person is a practical range. You don't need them daily, but they're great to have when you want a break from the same savory flavors. Store cans carefully, rotate them, and don't trust damaged cans. Sweet potatoes are one of those items that can make a pantry diet feel less harsh without turning into junk food. Number 27. Whole kernel corn. Canned corn earns its place because it's easy, it's versatile, and it adds carbs plus a bit of sweetness to otherwise plain meals. It's not a high-protein food, but it rounds out plates and makes rice and beans feel more complete. Corn also mixes well into soups, chili, and stews, and it works as a filler to stretch meat dishes. For example, canned chicken plus corn plus tomatoes and broth can become a quick soup that actually tastes like a planned recipe. For buying, consider no salt added if you can find it, but standard is fine. Corn is also a good trade-up item for beginners because it's usually affordable and easy to rotate into normal meals. For stockpiling, 8 to 16 cans per person is a realistic start, especially if you're building family meals and want familiar side dishes. Store it in a cool, dry spot, rotate it, and keep an eye on can condition. Corn is also useful because even cold, it's easy to eat. That matters when you don't want to cook or can't. Number 28. Green beans. Canned green beans are a practical vegetable choice because they're simple, mild, and they fit into a lot of meals without fighting the flavor of everything else. They help balance a pantry diet that can easily become too heavy on starches and salty proteins. Green beans also work well in soups and stews, and they can be eaten straight if needed. For buying, the best upgrade is no salt added or low sodium, because you can season them later and avoid turning every meal into a sodium bomb. Another useful tip: store a mix of cut green beans and French style if you like variety, but don't overcomplicate it. For stockpiling, think in total vegetable servings. A beginner target might be 20 to 40 cans of assorted vegetables per person, and green beans can be a big chunk of that because they're easy to use. Keep them in a dry storage area, rotate regularly, and avoid cans with heavy rust. Vegetables may not feel exciting, but they're part of staying consistent and not burning out on your food plan. Number 29. Carrots. Canned carrots are one of the best support vegetables because they add color, mild sweetness, and texture to soups, stews, rice dishes, and canned meat meals. They also work well as a side dish when you want something simple. In a pantry-based menu, carrots help keep meals from feeling like a pile of beige food. They're also easy to mash into soups to thicken them without needing flour. For buying, look for sliced carrots if you want quick soups and mixes, or baby carrots if you want more side dish use. Low sodium is a nice bonus. For stockpiling, carrots don't need to dominate, but they're worth keeping because they combine with almost everything. A beginner amount could be 6 to 12 cans per person, then scale depending on how much you actually cook with them. Store them cool and dry, rotate them, and remember that the liquid and vegetable cans can be used in soups and cooking if water is tight and the flavor fits. It's not gourmet, but it's practical. Number 30. Canned fruit. Canned fruit is a smart stockpile item for 2 reasons: fast energy and food morale. When your pantry meals are heavy on beans, rice, and savory canned foods, fruit adds brightness and a different flavor profile without needing fresh produce. Look for fruit packed in 100% juice or light syrup if you want more flexibility. Heavy syrup versions have their place as higher calorie options, but most people do better with lighter choices that don't turn every serving into dessert. Fruit also gives you something easy to eat when appetite is low, and it can be mixed into oats or eaten alongside salty foods to balance the taste. For buying, choose a mix: peaches, pears, pineapple, mandarin oranges, and fruit cocktail all give different textures and uses. For stockpiling, 10-20 cans per person is a solid beginner target, especially for family preparedness. Store them like the rest, cool, dry, no damaged cans, and rotate them into normal life so your supply stays fresh and familiar.